The book opens with a chapter on character creation. No, that's actually not true. D&D 5e just got a new Players Handbook. This one. And it's called 2024 edition. It's not really a new edition, it's an upgrade. It's supposed to be compatible with all the material for 5e that already exists. But at the same time, it has to be an improvement, so it justifies you buy the new books. Hi, my name is Tim and welcome to my channel. Today I'm gonna take a look at the new 2024 D&D Players Handbook. I bought my copy together with my DM to get a better understanding of the changes, and here's what I found. At its core, this is still 5e, and how the game's played stays basically the same. So at first sight it looks like you could really use pre-2024 material in your games. Of course, there are tweaks, changes and updates all over the book. I mean, this is what its new edition is all about. While reading through the book, the layout really worked for me. It's clear, it's concise, it's not cluttered, and it seems pretty well organized. And at the end you even get a glossary and an index, which is cool. Especially if you want to reference something. The artwork, it's really colorful, and I guess some of it may be not the best artwork for everyone, but I did like it, and if it's not that serious, I mean, this is D&D, and from what I figured so far, it's hard to take everything really seriously. The book opens with some introductory words, and then the first chapter is about playing the game, so it's the core rules. And from what I figured, this is kind of a change of order from the previous edition. And I think it makes sense, because why not learn what you can do in the world before you decide on how you want to do this? While reading the first chapter, there are some things I noticed that have been changed. For example, surprise is now handled so you don't lose a whole round, you just get disadvantage on your initiative roll. So probably you will be acting later in the round, but it doesn't have to be, and it figures quite well with the rest, and it's not like as punishing if you got surprised as it was before. And the next thing is like how ties are resolved. Now it's quite simple. Just between the players, you get to decide what order you want to act in. And if it's between players and DM, the DM decides the order. And that's it. There's no set of tie-breaking rules you have to go down step by step or so. And another thing I noticed about the game rules is how inspiration works. Now it's called heroic inspiration. I think it will be called inspiration in no time. And you choose after you roll if you want to re-roll. I guess many tables did this already with house rules, and some games also did this. I'm looking at you, Baldur's Gate 3. So now it's official. That are just two changes I noticed during the playing the game chapter. And I guess if you look close enough, there might be more changes. But for now I think, yeah, playing the game really just works as it did before. The second chapter of the book is all about character creation. And I think here are the most changes. One thing I noticed, there's no longer races. Now they're called species, which I think is a way better term in so many ways. And yeah, they still give you basic traits. Can you see in the dark? Can you, walking speed, stuff like that. That basically stays like it was. There are now 8 species in the Player's Handbook. And I think Asima and Goliath are new, and there's no more half-orcs or half-elves. And at the same time, things like high wood or dark elves are now lineages, and they're just figured into the main species description. And there's some small detail changes, like if you get a spell by taking a specific lineage, and you can cast the spell once a day for free like it was before, and now you can cast the spell again using your spell slots if you have any. I think later tomes like Modern Kinds Monsters of the Multiverse already did this for playable species, but the old Player's Handbook didn't have this. So it's a nice upgrade. And the second part that changes is how you pick your background. Now it's part of this whole concept called origin, where you get the species and your background. So now your background determines your ability increase. And all backgrounds now give you something that's called an origin feat. So you already started with a feat. And yeah, it really puts more emphasis on your background, because that's where your ability score increase comes from, and that's where your origin feat comes from. So I think this really gives more meaning to a background, because now it has more relevance during play, because there's mechanical benefits. What I kind of missed during character creation is things like flaws. I think they got completely removed. I really missed them, because I think building flaws into your character could really inform your roleplay, could make them more sympathetic, or could give you a starting point for your personal arc. At the same time, you get a nice list of keywords for your abilities. So if you've got particularly high or low abilities, there's 4 keywords each to get you started on your description. Like, are you muscular, or are you weak, or are you wary, or are you naive? This could give you a nice starting point to describe your character, starting from your abilities. So I think this could give more variation to your description. So not every character having a high strength score looks or is described the same. Next thing that changed, and it changed a lot, is classes. I think every class got reworked. There's so much there that I think this will be a whole other video. That being said, my general impression is the classes got more streamlined. There's less exotic abilities are like more comparable, and I think they got reworked, they got revised, they got moved. More stuff going on level 2 for some classes, and now every class gets their subclass at level 3. For some classes this changes quite a lot of things, especially for warlocks. Maybe you've heard it, maybe not. But warlocks now get the defining features of the pact now at level 3. And this replaces things like Pact of the Tome or Pact of the Blade, which now got factored into Eldritch Invocation. So warlocks are now less different than other classes, and I think this is a good thing. So if you switch from one class or another, or you're just picking your class and you try to compare them, it's easier to see a common structure. Like you get a base class and the first 2 levels will be the same for every member of this class. And then you get to pick your specialization, you get to pick your subclass, and it's the same for everyone. And I think this is like easier to comprehend, easier to follow. And without going into more details, my general impression is that all the new features give you more flexibility, more adaptability. You can change your spells more often, you can change cantrips, stuff like that. You get more features where you can trade in one resource of your class for another resource, like you can refresh stuff by sacrificing a spell slot. And I think this gives you more options like how you want to play your class. And I also got this gut feeling that most of the classes at some point got stronger. So I think if you try to play 2014 and 2024 classes at the same table, this would work. The 2014 classes may have some more exotic abilities, the 2024 classes may miss some abilities. But in the end, I think 2024 classes will be more flexible and will be slightly stronger. So there definitely is incentive to switch to the new classes. Maybe that's completely intentional. I think you really have to look into the details if you try to mix old and new classes, because some of the feats will work differently, some of the classes will have different abilities. This requires some attention to detail. And I've already mentioned feats. Feats have changed. Not every feat stayed the same. I think some things throughout the equipment chapter also changed. One notable exception are weapon masteries. I think now every weapon got a mastery ability, and you've got to play a class, or you have to take a special feat to unlock weapon masteries. And now you can specialize in a specific kind of weapon, like crossbow or longbow, like fighter, barbarian, paladin, ranger, rogue. And if you do this, you get a special feature they can use during combat. More than like, okay, I attack again, so now I attack and I use this weapon mastery ability. I think this can open up for some new combinations, like what weapons you fight with. And now you can also factor in like what mastery abilities you want to utilize. So maybe this makes building a fighter a bit more interesting than it did before. Another thing I noticed is there's some hints on crafting rules. So like what kind of tools you can use, what kind of equipment you can craft. I think they tried to give crafting a little more weight. It's not like a detailed sandbox crafting system, but gives you some things to start. Then what you can do if you want to brew your own healing potions or craft your own weapons. The next chapter is on spells, and I've read some spell descriptions, not every spell description because that's way too much, but I read some I was curious about, and I noticed spells have changed. So if you particularly like or dislike certain spells, I really think you take a closer look, because for example, the Spare the Dying cantrip now is no longer touch, but it's got a real range. And on the other hand, Chill Touch is now a melee cantrip. So things like these got swapped, or some mechanics got changed. Sleep works differently now. It's now based on a saving throw, which I guess makes it really much more comparable to other spells. And I think changes like this are what they've done throughout the whole chapter. Like here again, making everything more streamlined, more comparable, like removing some of the more exotic parts that kind of didn't really fit in with all the rest of the mechanics. So I think this could also help make it easier to remember how your spells work if they are more similar to each other. Then there's, well, a chapter or more like 2 pages of world description. It's not much, because D&D always has more specific material for different worlds, like adventures, setting books, stuff like that. But there is a visually appealing depiction of all the planes, which is kind of nice. And then the book closes with a glossary, which really goes a long way in explaining different terms. And I really like this. An alphabetically ordered glossary. If you reference something like, how does initiative work? What's surprise? What's a condition? What does paralyze mean? You can just look it up in the glossary, and you don't have to flip through all the different pages in the book just to remember where in the combat or every other chapter this was mentioned. And the last thing is an index, which really helps because it's, well, an index. So here are my final thoughts. I think the new edition really is compatible with the old editions. So I think you could really use all your material you already own. And well, there's some guidelines in this book, like how to convert, like what to look out for. And well, one thing I noticed, maybe you have to update the challenge ratings of different encounters, because I really think the new classes are stronger. And I think once the new monster manual is out, we can see like if the monsters also got like little tweaks, changed and upgrades and are now stronger, or if the challenge ratings got adjusted. Altogether, after reading this for the first time, I think there's things to like if you change. And I know in my group we're going to change to the new Players Handbook. We just started this year, so we're not that invested in like how things were before, and we are not like this high up in the campaign that our characters would like be completely turned upside down. And on the plus side, like every class and subclass we chose is included in the book, so we don't have to wait for other material. And I think if you want to move over to the new edition, you have to talk this out with the group. And I think there's much to like. There's some things that did change, there are some things that are not yet included that you would have to integrate however you want this in your game. And if you're going to change, you have to pay attention to all the details that did change to get the most out of the new book. And I guess if you're trying to mix old and new classes, it might get more complicated. So if you played D&D for years and you're in the middle of a long-going campaign and you don't want to learn new rules, you don't have to, it's just an option. You're good to like wait till the next opportunity to consider changing. If you're just starting out, pick up the new book. There's much to like, and I think it's better organized, and it makes, in some places, it makes more sense than the old one. If you fall somewhere in the middle, I hope this video could give you some thoughts and impressions to inform your own decision. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It's free and it helps a lot. And please let me know in the comments what you think of the new Players Handbook. Did you read it? What did you like? What didn't you like? Do you consider switching over to the new rules, or don't you? And why? I would really love to read your comments and your thoughts on this. That's everything for now, and see you again in my next video.